Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I just wanted to give you a brief rundown of today's virtual press conference. Chairman Langworthy will make his remarks, and then we will open it up to questions from credentialed members of the news media only. At the end, members of the media can ask their questions either by using the raise your hand function, or you can type it into the Q&A box and the chairman will read it. And we'll try to get through as many questions as possible during our time together. And again, just please only credentialed members of the news media because we have a short window here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chairman Langworthy. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I called this press conference to address a very serious matter and to alert people of what I believe are dirty tricks and deceitful schemes that New York Democrats have engaged in largely around the race for governor. Over the course of the last few days, we've received an outpouring of calls from voters who are absolutely outraged over a mailing that they received. New York State Democrats sent out and paid for a mailer that was made to look like it was an official document from New York State, and it was called the New York State Voter Assistance Program from Vote NY. And in that letter, they said, quote, "To ensure public health, enclosed is an absentee ballot application." Now we're going to bring it up on the screen right now so that you can see it. And I want to make sure that that's there and everyone can actually see this document here. So as you see, we have the screen one, which is the New York State Voter Assistance Program, explaining how you can, fill out and get use this enclosed application for an absentee ballot. And the issue here is that this really, it looked like an official document. That absentee ballot was pre-filled out with the voters' information under Section 1, where voters are required to mark their reasoning for requesting to vote by mail. Whoever sent this out, which I believe it's the New York State Democratic Party, they pre-checked the box that says, quote, "temporary illness or physical disability," and circled a supposedly handwritten area called COVID concern. Now, this is an absolute outrage, and it's an abuse of the law. And voters that have called us, they're absolutely right to be furious. This mailing was designed to deceive voters, and it's outright dishonest by pre-checking their reason for needing an absentee ballot. No one should fill out that box but the voter who is requesting it. And in fact, the ballot application reads, "I am requesting in good faith an absentee ballot due to," and then the voter selects the reason. This is possibly fraudulent, but at very least, it's a shady, dirty trick that takes advantage of voters, and it leads them to possibly lying on this application and an official document. The voters of New York, they spoke loud and clear last year. They rejected a constitutional amendment that creates no-fault absentee ballots in this state. You have to declare a reason for wanting an absentee ballot, whether it's your work prevents you from getting to the voting that day. You'll be traveling, you'll be out of the area. This year, the legislature allowed people to expand and say that fear of contracting or temporary illness of COVID-19 is a valid reason. But what the Democrats have done here is they've decided that for everyone. Now, this obviously didn't just go to a small band of voters that they knew had COVID concerns. It went to everyone. And it's unconscionable and at the height of dishonesty and hypocrisy that Democrats are using the guise of COVID while we gather at concerts. I was at the Carrier Dome on Saturday night. There were 35,000 people there. Sporting events around New York, full. Every aspect of our life has returned to normal. Restaurants are full. The shopping centers are full. COVID is an excuse to try to rig this election. Make no mistake. They are trying to manipulate mail-in voting because they know they're in deep trouble. Two recent polls show Lee Zeldin within 4 and 6 points of beating Kathy Hochul. Now, their attempt to put the thumb on the scales through gerrymandering was struck down by the courts, and they're poised to lose seats in Congress, the Senate, and the state assembly. That's why they're trying to weaponize absentee voting with deceitful tactics. And it's not just Republicans that are outraged by this. In the words of a Democrat who reached out to me, they said, as in quote, I'm reading this right, from their quote, as a registered Democratic voter, I feel that this outreach takes away from my choice. Now, even the bipartisan Carter-Baker report on improving our election systems, they warn against the expansion of mail-in voting and call for it to be limited to those that really need it. And if you have a legitimate health issue, if you have, comorbidities or issues with your health that makes you more susceptible to serious illness, including COVID, then it's totally legitimate. But to continue this charade, and we have reason to believe that this mailing was sent and targeted youth, and many, many young people that happen to be away at college got this mailing. This charade of COVID fears with our young people to exert dictatorial powers of the Democratic Party, it's just plain BS. It's been 2 years. We have vaccines, we have therapeutics, the variants, they're much less potent than they were. The days of milking COVID for their own political benefit and power need to be done. It's the same excuse Hochul is using for unilaterally extending her own emergency powers that allow her to hand out billion-dollar no-bid contracts to her top donors sight unseen. It's a joke, but the sad thing is there's nothing funny about it. Mail-in voting with no excuse was rejected by the voters for a very good reason. The same bipartisan report that we detailed earlier said that it can be rife with fraud. It opens the door. It leads to ballot harvesting and voter coercion. There have been numerous reports that, union members and others in employer-employee situations were forced to fill out their ballots in front of others to ensure that they were voting in a certain way. It completely jeopardizes the right to secrecy. And there's no good reason for it right now. Voting has never been so easy for New Yorkers. With early voting, you have so many opportunities to go to the polls. We have 10 full days of early voting, and it comes at great cost to the taxpayers of the state. And it's something that I think everybody agrees with. It is a good thing. It gives you more opportunities to go to the polls. This is nothing, this mailing, what it symbolizes, it's all politics. It has nothing to do with public safety. They know they can't win on the merits, so they're resorting to these slimy tactics. And we're going to make sure that voters know exactly what they're up to. We are going to fight and win on our ideas and our solutions, and we are going to win because their one-party Democratic rule has been an abject failure for all New Yorkers. And it's time for Democrats to pay a price for their disastrous reign in New York in trying to rig this election with dirty tricks. So thank you very much, and we would be happy to take your questions at this time.
Okay, first we'll go to Zach Williams with the New York Post.
Hi, Zach.
Hi, Nick. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Great. I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about ongoing efforts by the state party to even the playing field with Hochul on with her cash advantage over Lee. As the state party raised additional money, you could highlight any new TV ad buys or just in general, what's the plan to keep Lee
as
competitive?
we talked to you last week on that very topic, we are fully integrated on a daily basis with the Zeldin campaign. Lee is fully competing. He's not going to keep up with Kathy Hochul's special interest money. I mean, he doesn't get to hand out, $700 million contracts and get massive influxes of cash from the people that are benefiting by her selling the government out the back door. So, we are using every tool in the arsenal to be fully integrated with Lee's campaign. He will have his message out throughout this fall. There are many other entities that are working hard to do the same. So, we had that conversation last week, Zach, and we'll keep having it. So you'll see those ad buys as they become public.
And just wanted to ask, I'm not sure if you got the news or not.
Based on this,
I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask any comment on Hochul announcing she's not extending the state of emergency. I don't know if you caught that news or not.
I mean, I had not caught that yet, but this is, finally the pressure to stop with this, non-emergency emergency that she's continued this over and over and over again. She's been caught with the abuse of power. and she's used it to this date to sell the government out the back door, which was very, very detailed by the Times Union reports on the COVID test scandal that certainly needs more scrutiny and coverage. Any other questions on what we talked about here today?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. We got any other?
Yep. We have one from Mona Salama. She wanted to know if we have evidence that the mailing is targeted based. Are they also going to independent and non-registered party voters? And do we know if they're sending this letter to inactive voters over active voters?
I must say that we don't know yet what the full scope of the Democratic mailing is. There are people all over New York that approach us, every different region from the Finger Lakes to Long Island to the Southern Tier. We had many people reach out. It did seem to target young people that may be away at school. They're trying to, boost the interest levels. I think many of the voters were Democrats or former Democrats, people that at one time had been Democrats. So, we do see this as an expansion, but the biggest problem we have with this is you have the Democrats trying to manipulate COVID regulations to try to expand their voting playing field. They did this in 2020, but when Andrew Cuomo during the June primary sent ballots to every New Yorker, whether they had ever voted or not, they got absentee ballot applications. It cost the state tens of millions of dollars, and they were very excited because they got many more people to vote because of the boredom of people stuck in their houses. They tried to do that again in the fall, but ran out of money. The law was not on their side. Now you have this opportunity where they've taken to use the loophole of fear of COVID to try to expand Democrat vote just out of the use of fear of COVID. I mean, there are people that this loophole was designed for, and it certainly wasn't young people away at college. And that seems to be what we see so far as the target of this mailing. But, this is a dirty use of a loophole in the election law, and trying to do this in the name of COVID and public health, I think is reprehensible.
Okay, I think that's it for questions. So we can close out. But if there's any members of the news media who would like me to send them copies of the letter and a redacted version of the ballot application, we can do that for you as well.
Very good. Thanks, everyone.